Hello, Facebook.
Okay, so seems like we are now on Facebook. Had a little bit of a glitch there. So welcome everyone, Hannah here, and today I am with Kat Moyle, a body worker therapist. Kat, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, yeah, I would. Hello, nice to be here. So I'm Kat Moyle. I'm based in Malta, and I'm a mind, body mentor and a body worker. So I work intuitively with people's bodies on their sort of physical, emotional, spiritual, on all levels. And I also guide people. The mind, body, mental bit is kind of guiding people into a better relationship with their body. Understand that it's kind of a powerful tool for life. So it's great to be here having a conversation about the virtual world and body work in the virtual world.
Yes, so Kat and I have been exchanging on this for the last couple of weeks since we connected during the lockdowns began, basically. Um, And I know that Kat has been doing extensive research and hopping onto many Zoom calls and taking the best from the best. And a few of her best insights will come out definitely during our conversation today. As a body worker, going online, this must have been like, what? How? I mean, there's a lot of adapting that's needed. I mean, for the practitioner and also for your clients, right? And I just want to know a little bit more about your experience and how you adapted your work, the challenges that you have faced, and maybe how you overcame them, and also from the client's perspective, how this was for you.
Sure. Small question to begin with. So, no. And it's been, with hindsight, I can probably describe it as a nice sort of linear journey, but of course it hasn't been linear. It's been sort of chaotic and spirally and sort of showing up and trying things out and figuring out what does and doesn't work. The starting point really was sort of inspired by a guy called Tad Hargrave, who I'm sure you must have come across, the marketing for hippies kind of guy, who did this great thing of like, where, how do you get people from island A to island B if you are the boat? Like this is our sort of our model. So the starting point was really to think about what I do with people that isn't just about touching their bodies. So what other support, interventions, advice, information do I share with people in the clinic space around the body work? And was to really sort of think, to shake that down really and go, right, well, I sometimes provide signposting advice. I sometimes teach them a breathing technique. I might teach them a bit of self-massage. We might do some meditation together. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we do as body workers and practitioners, body-based practitioners, that isn't just about pressing flesh to flesh. So the first thing was to sort of shake that stuff out really and go, okay, I have some value that isn't just that doesn't just come across when I'm in a room with somebody. So that was a really useful starting point, and I decided to start throwing some of that stuff out for free. That was my my sort of approach. So I started running online circles for anyone who wanted support. It was really that broad. It's like, okay, how are we coping? What's it bringing up for people? Let's just get in a Zoom room together and start talking about that stuff. And I will see what tools I have in my toolkit that I can share with people that might help them on that day, because as we know, our response to the situation kind of changed daily, weekly, monthly. It's very different having a conversation with somebody about COVID now as it was 6 or 7 weeks ago. So I went out to my community, I guess, my mailing list and my Facebook group, and just said, I'm going to do some free stuff, come along, let's do some experiments together. I also jumped on an opportunity to run what were called embodiment circles as part of a global program. So there's a completely online embodiment conference that happens once a year called the Embodiment Conference, and that's happening in October. And they really are looking at, online education and support around the kind of body-based agenda. So they ran a program of 8 weeks of embodiment circles, and I volunteered to run one, not having really a clue what I was going to do, but they provided a bit of training, and then we all got together in a community of kind of hosts, the hosts of all the circles, and just shared what was working and what wasn't working. So it was real kind of collective learning, and so I took some of the learning from that. So that was sort of the beginning of that was my sort of initial response. And then I started to move into doing one-to-one sessions with people. But we can talk about that because there's a few things that came out of that we can talk about in a bit more detail. But yeah, that was my sort of starting point, was I want to do something. I'm just going to try a few things out, and in the spirit of they might not work.
Yeah, and I think that's very important to keep in mind that, as you said, this is a learning curve, and it is about trying and testing, adapting. Like, so you started with adapting your actual services. Okay, what else do I bring into my offer?
Yeah.
But also from the virtual aspect, it's trying and testing what works for you, what works for your clients in the best way possible.
Yeah.
To get
right, and some of it didn't work.
Yeah.
I tried some. I'm just going to grab my charger. Hold on. I tried some. I'm trying to remember what they are now, because as soon as they didn't work, I stopped doing them. But I tried some stuff in the circle, which was which I then adapted, but it was a kind of gazing at the other people in the space. I did it way too early on in the circle. People didn't know each other, and I did it for far too long, and it ended up creating discomfort. But I had, and this is sort of where the collective learning comes from, I had somebody sit in the circle who was a friend who, was able to give me this felt really, some feedback. Right? This felt really good. This was a bit weird. This, which you can't always tell when you are holding space for a group of people and you're trying to keep to time and you're figuring out the tech and you're doing all the other things. That it was good to have somebody else in the room. So that was a sort of a piece of advice or feedback, really, is get help. Get some other people to tell you what is or isn't working.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really important, that you have someone there to give you the feedback. Going back to the beginning of your journey, you've also kind of expanded your community, right? Providing platforms and just a space to hold discussion for body workers and yoga teachers and anybody who actually has that in person. I found that really, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of born out of, I quite like being busy. So I was like, the thought of not working for, we didn't know how long it was going to be at that point. The thought of not working was a bit daunting. And I think I found some balance in the end. But that was really, we know, don't we, that solopreneurs or body workers or yoga teachers or fitness instructors, personal trainers, we are in this world where we're often solo and we're trying to do everything on our own, or maybe we collaborate with a couple of other people. But we do incredible work, but our voice in the noise is quieter, and it's more powerful when we collaborate together. So in my head, I was like, well, there are all these amazing practitioners who I follow here, like fitness instructors, yoga teachers, Pilates teachers, psychotherapists, nutrition advisors, all the people in the kind of health and well-being world who are all really quickly pivoting and trying to figure out how to do their thing online. And a lot of them are doing it for free because they're like, well, I just want to do something and I want to maintain contact with my community and I want to keep active and I want to learn this new space because I don't know how long we're going to be here for. And so they were all doing this stuff for free, and I just thought, well, this is like a really useful thing to put all together, because if somebody is at home, wants to do some exercise and their gym is closed, isn't it amazing that there are like 20 fitness instructors out there doing free classes? So I started to put it into a calendar, which was again something I'd seen another community do, and I was like, great, that seems like a thing that I can do within my administrative skills, and it would be useful. And then so that's why I pulled it together, and that then led to this community. making a sort of small Facebook community, because actually the things that people were sharing were, I don't know how to use Zoom, but I really want to do my classes online, or I don't have a paid Zoom account, I can't really afford it at the moment, or you know, how often should I do a class, or so we started kind of pulling this Facebook community together where people could start asking those questions collectively and supporting people in their profession. Because suddenly it seemed to be that the kind of competitiveness sort of, which sometimes exists in this world and not always, actually I find a lot of body-based professionals to be incredibly supportive of one another, because we know that this world is a weird world to work in and we're often on our own, but it's the competitiveness immediately dropped away. Everyone was in the same boat, so you know, of trying to figure out the same thing. So if it was faster to go, I've worked this out, I'm going to share it on the Facebook group, everybody benefited, and that's sort of where the community was born. And now I'm loving it and want to do more with it.
Definitely. I really believe, I mean, I just went a little bit off topic there, but I really believe that community is key. So when you are like going through all of this like transformation in yourself and in your business, and in the circumstances around us are definitely changing by the minute, maybe, how important it is to be actually in that community and learn from one another and have more of a collaborative mindset rather than seeing each other as competitors.
And I think when one of us grows, we all grow. So you know, what you can never replace is our unique sort of personality and our value system, and whatever we bring to the version of body work or yoga or Pilates or fitness or whatever that we are, that's our output. You know, you'll never replace that, and you see it when people try and copycat one another. It just feels weird. So it's but the base stuff, right? Marketing, tech, you know, how to communicate with people, all the stuff that we all have to know on top of our particular skill or our particular profession. There's no reason why we shouldn't share all of that stuff. You know, we're all helping one another, and each time you see somebody do something, of course we're inspired by it. We might go, actually, that would really work for my community, or I'm going to take that and I'm going to, you know, shift it a bit. So we all get better. And I think ultimately we're all trying to serve our customers as best we can. So if we're part of community-based working, we do that. We're able to bring more things to our clients, not less.
Definitely. And I think actually what I'm seeing is that people are going through this process, and suddenly it becomes more than just a business of serving my clients, but it's also, you're kind of going through a lot of inner work and seeing, okay, what do I have that makes me stand out? So it's like suddenly you're going through this, like, how can I present myself in the most authentic way? How can this become me? And this is where again the human element comes in, and how can we enhance this from the practitioner point of view, the authenticity and everything that you stand for, your values and your unique abilities, I call the superpowers. And also enhancing that relationship with your client, where it's not just a transaction, but you're working together, and business is about building relationships, and let alone in this field where you're actually working with the body and the mind, how important it is. So on that, like, how would you rephrase? How have you been implementing and enhancing this human element in your online sessions, be it with a group or with one-to-one? Like, what were the challenges you faced, or any resistance, and how are you overcoming that? Any tips?
Yeah, lots. So I think I'm going to pick up on the word resistance. So, because I think that's really important for us as practitioners. It's like, we have to identify if we have resistance, first of all. Because I think whilst, you know, this situation has forced us in a way to become a bit more tech savvy, or at least put a toe in the water of the kind of online world. Some of us have dumped right in and are swimming around and don't want to go back to doing one-to-one work or face-to-face work. Not myself, but I know that there are people who are like, yeah, I much prefer this way of working. that we have to look at our relationship to it first and find a balance or a way of working with it that's comfortable for us first, even if it might be a bit challenging from a technological point of view. It's like the core of it has to feel authentic and supportive and right. And some people have chosen, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do online stuff, I'm just going to wait until I can get my hands on people. And I totally respect that. And some people, like I say, have kind of gone, way, this is amazing, I don't have to get out of my pajamas and I can see more clients and I can bring greater impact to people. And my clients, for example, who might be in sort of emotionally vulnerable states, like depressed states, who don't necessarily want to get up and run to a studio, I can support them. So there's lots and lots of, first thing I would say, lots of benefits to doing online stuff. And it has to feel like it's within your sort of zone of joy or your kind of comfort zone to a certain extent. So I would always start there. Some things that I've kind of picked up are, it's different. Like, that is the first thing to remember. It is different working with people in 2D form than it is 3D form. So for a start, when everybody comes to a yoga studio, or even I was using the example on some training I was doing the other day of, like, when people come into an office, I was doing some work around the human element of meeting online for people in offices. Like, when you come into the same physical space, you're immediately unified in some way. Like, the environment is the same, the lighting is the same, the temperature is the same. You've all made a journey to the yoga studio. You don't have that when you are working online. So you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Somebody might be having a massive argument in the background. There might be a pile of washing up. There might be, full on distraction. They might have not seen anybody all day. So there's all this
screaming.
There's all sorts of things that can be going on for people. So the first thing to sort of remember as a practitioner is that you are together on a screen, but you potentially are all in very different places. So I quite like some of the kind of unification practices. I know we were talking a bit offline about supporting people to create a sort of sacred space to do the yoga practice in, if that's what you're doing. So, I've done this before. I did this before with a one-to-one session. We were going to go into some quite deep work together. And I was like, okay, so this is really important, some stuff that you have with you. You need something kind of cozy and warm, a blanket, in case you feel like you need that support, because I can't bring that support to you. You need some water, because I'm not going to be there on hand to provide you with water. You need to make sure that you're kind of warm and comfortable. So wherever that is for you, that might be your sofa, it might be your garden, or somewhere that feels like a supportive container for you. You might want to bring things like crystals or a candle or any artifacts that feel like they are supportive to you. Because I'm not in charge of creating that in my clinic room, I'm in my invitation before the session is for somebody, is to give somebody suggestions of stuff that they might want to bring to them. And what I like about that is it brings some autonomy to the session. They have some autonomy over creating their own container. And because my approach is always about empowerment and reminding the person that they are their kind of healing vessel, and that, that's great for me. I really love that I'm not the one sort of taking ownership of what a healing space should look like or what music should be played or. So that's the sort of I was talking about the kind of container, and then the unification stuff. So you sort of bringing everyone into the same space. Now, if you're running a yoga class, you're doing that because you're taking everyone through a unified set of movements. But if you're not doing a yoga class, maybe you're doing a little discursive workshop, or you might be doing a sort of meditation. Before that, you can get people to do a kind of breathing exercise together, where they all breathe in unison with one another. So breathing with their inhaling, they lift their arms over their heads, and exhaling down in front of the body. Or you can ask them the same question in a Zoom chat, for example, just something that begins to bring people together. One thing that I really like to do is check people's energy levels. So this is like twofold. First of all, this is a unifying kind of practice that everybody does at the same time. But also it gives you an idea of where people are at, right? If they've just had an argument with their boyfriend or girlfriend, or you know, they've got a pile of work on that they've just taken 10 minutes out of to do a bit of yoga breathing, or, you know, it gives you an idea of where people are at, so you can adjust your intervention or tailor your intervention or make it more personalized. Now, if you were in a room with people all together, you would pick up on some of that, but when you're through a screen, you have to ask where people's energy levels are. So you can ask them to do a, give me one of these if your energy levels are really high, and one if your energy levels are really low. Where are people in between? And you can just ask everyone to sort of show on the screen. Or you can do, you know, arm to the side. So this would be energy levels really high. This would be somewhere in the middle. And then down by the side would be really low. So there's visual ways that you can do it, or you can get people to type in the chat. And that gives you a kind of measure of, if you've got people's energy levels all over the place, you can do adapted practices for those people who are like going through the roof with anxiety, and those people who need like help lifting up off the floor. So that was
that was really interesting. That's really interesting.
Right, and if you find, for example, that everybody's energy levels is up here, you can do some nice kind of grounding practices, or, you know, not that you want to dampen that. I love that there's energy in the room, but if it means that people are scattered and their eyes are all, you know, looking around the room and they're not really giving you focus, then you might want to ground the energy a bit, particularly if you're trying to teach something and you need people's sort of, you know, eyes on you and brains lined up. Similarly, if everybody comes in and their energy levels are really low, you can do some kind of shaking or some movement or a gratitude practice or something to sort of begin to elevate the energy a little bit. There was something else I wanted to say about that. It's gone. It'll come back.
That's really interesting. That's a perfect way to get, first of all, to get people, your client, especially if you're doing a group, to get everyone kind of composed and focused. As you said, if you're teaching something, you want them to be paying attention. Yeah. But yeah, exactly. We're all tuning in from our own living space, so we might have all sorts of things and distractions going on, or an argument that you might have just had, or something that pissed you off. So that's a really good tip there, guys. Take note.
And I think the other thing I sort of want to say about that is what I was saying at the beginning about it's different. It's different when we're working through a screen as a practitioner. So our senses, that sort of sixth sense we might get of like, oh, this person feels like they're a bit sad, or that person over there in the corner feels like they've got lots of energy and they want to share something. We're not getting that so much through, you know, osmosis. So we have to use our other senses and ask questions to find that out. So I find, actually there's two things I want to say about this. I find that I'm using my eyes a lot more, obviously, when I'm doing online stuff. So if I was doing a group thing, anyone that I just wanted to kind of tune into a bit more, I might pin their video on Zoom or make their video a bit bigger, just so I can see their features a little bit more and see what's going on. They don't know I'm doing that.
No, you can do that.
Yes. So there's a gallery view and speaker view, which most people are familiar with. But also if you've got everyone on gallery view, you can pin a video and then it makes that person big.
Yeah, I'm just seeing it now. Cool, thanks.
Yes. So that can be really helpful if you want to, you know, or even if you're in a group and you're just having a conversation with somebody and you just want to kind of tune into maybe some of their facial expressions. Or I did a session with somebody where we were doing some breath work, and they were very, very very adept at breathing into their belly, but finding it much more difficult to breathe up into the chest. So as I was talking them through the breath work, I needed to see their chest. I'm like, you're gonna have to lie down and we'll have to fiddle around with the camera so I can see what's going on with the top half of your body. So there are things that, and so I was finding that I'm using my eyes a lot more. If you're asking questions and people are shy, you can ask them to reply in the kind of private chat. So I've got to go to a couple of yoga classes where people are like, tell me in the private chat if you've got any injuries or there's anything going on for you. We had a conversation about whether you might want to have that discussion beforehand. like just a quick WhatsApp chat or a quick messenger chat. How are you today? What's going on? Are you coming? What do you need? This kind of doubling down on sort of the one-to-one sort of connection is really feels like it's much more important right now, because the only contact we're having is through a screen. So I'm using my eyes much more. The side effect of that is, and I may be using my hearing a bit more as well, actually. I'm really listening in to what's happening with somebody's breathing or the intonation of their voice. But afterwards, that means that the session can be a bit more tiring. So I was really, I've made a couple of, or a video on a couple of things that you can do after a Zoom call to sort of avoid Zoom gloom or Zoom fatigue, they're calling it. So some hip movements just to kind of unlock your low back, but also some eye stretches. Maybe I'll give you the link to that video and you can share it. Some eye stretches.
I love that. That's so good. I have been practicing that actually. I need to do it more frequently.
Right, and there's two things that happen. So that's really good for just stretching in the muscle of the eye, but also when we are cyclopsing at a screen or staring into the camera or staring at the screen, our vision gets narrow and then our thinking gets narrow. So actually, as we stretch our eyes in different directions, we then re-access more creative centers of the brain and different parts of the brain. So it sort of acts as a reset. So that's the other thing I would say from a practitioner point of view. Understand that it's different interacting in this way, and our sort of clear down process between sessions or classes might look a little bit different right now.
Amazing, Kat.
Equally important.
Yeah, that's gold right there, guys, to make your Zoom classes an exceptionally amazing experience for both you and your clients. In fact, you touched on this, like, tuning into your client beforehand and asking them questions. And I think in the online space, it's very tempting once you understand how all the systems work and you've navigated through the tech stuff. It's very tempting to start automating things, right? To reduce like the messages going around, the links. I mean, you might forget somebody, and getting people to automatically book. And me myself, I mean, I use digital online calendars and Zoom, and sometimes I sync them together also. What importance do you give to the time you spend to get to know the client before they come onto the call? So like really understanding where they're at. So for example, if you're a yoga teacher or you're doing a group session that's kind of open, and you might have just random people that you've never worked with before hopping onto your session. Yeah. How do you manage that? Because I feel that to enhance the user experience and to add value actually in your class, it's really important to know that customer beforehand, or that student or the client. How do you go about it? What's your take on this?
Great question. I think my sort of starting point is, even if you're sort of teaching something online or sharing something, that actually you don't overreach with that, because not that it's not an amazing place to be able to work with more people, right? We can get hundreds of people in a yoga room now on Zoom. Yeah. That my experience so far, I'm going to caveat that, is I can't do quite as much in an hour online session with somebody as I can if I'm in the room with them. So, and I like to work really deeply with people. So for the one-to-one sessions I've done, the bit that what I would call the sort of, it's not administrative, but the administrative bit that we might do at the beginning of a session, as they come in and we're having a glass of water and having a bit of a chit chat about like, how are you, what's going on, any sort of aches, pains I need to know about, what's the sort of emotional territory like, what's the, what time do you need to leave, all of those kind of, the admin bit, but although it's sort of more emotional stuff than that. I am doing outside of the appointment, if you like. So I might do that over a sort of couple of voice messages backwards and forwards. or we might do it over a little WhatsApp chat, because I want the container of the Zoom session to be just about the work that we do together, because if it gets busied up with all the other stuff, somehow it's already a slightly different space to work in. So I just want to clear out anything that is not, that's useful for me but not necessarily useful for them. So I need to know where they're at emotionally, I need to know where they're at physically, because that will help me tune into the session. And normally I would do that as they walk in the room and we would have a chat, and then as I'm walking in the clinic space, I would begin to tune in then. I'm doing that stuff a bit before, so that they come in and we're kind of contained in the Zoom session to really working on what they've kind of shared. Yeah, I feel like I've gone slightly off point, but
no, I think this is really important though. It's I mean, ultimately it is important for them also, because they're going to get more out of their session if it's, you know, if the practitioner is really understanding where they're at, then they're going to get more value, rather than just like rocking up as a drop-in in a random online class and, you know, just receiving instruction, right. But you might not be feeling aligned in that point, right? So it's
right. I think it depends what you're trying to achieve as a practitioner. So like I say, for me, I want to go deep with people, so it's definitely important to me not to do that stuff. Like, I just changed where I do it. I do it outside of the session now, or before the session. I would never not do it. Like, and especially with a new client, I'm going through I would do a consultation with them, but rather than have them sat in my clinic space, because I can't do that, I'm doing that with them before, and then we're having a bit of a space in between that and then moving into the session, partly to give both of us time to digest where they're at, because working online is a bit more tiring. So that's like my kind of, eye stretch, body break is the break between doing the consultation and then doing the session with them. It helps me kind of go, okay, can I drop in? So I definitely wouldn't not do it. I'm doubling down on it, I think, is probably what I'm saying. And it depends what it depends what you're trying to achieve. So if you're wanting to create some sort of community collective experience, I would say you have to do that stuff beforehand. Or at least as they come into the chat, like give that some time, because you aren't able to pick up on that stuff during the session, because you've got small tiny boxes of people, and you'll get less data from people. So it's a bit, again, it's that sort of separate, beginning to sort of have a think about what it is that you bring to the table beyond the asana practice or beyond the hands-on massage. It's like, what are all the other elements that go to making your thing magical?
Definitely.
Make sure you're including all of those, but you may have to do it in a slightly different order or way. And I agree with you, like the technology of like automatically, like there's a yoga teacher I follow in the UK called Naomi Absalom, who's amazing. And she does a thing called collective energy once a week, which is like yoga therapy all in one. And even though her process is automated, and she has like 100 odd people on that call, it feels personal. It feels very personal. She puts together a playlist for every single class that she sends out beforehand. She gives lots of advice on how to set that up, and that you shouldn't listen to it through your computer speaker because that's a bit rubbish. There's a lot of like her love and her personality in the automated messages that you get. And the other thing that she does, which I really like, is she is constantly in and out of the screen. So she's, demoing some of the postures, but she's constantly up here doing this, like, how's everyone doing? Is everyone, she's got 4 pages of people to look at least, but she's in there, and her face coming to the screen and her sort of, interaction with you, even though you're, got one leg in the air and you're sweating and you're crying or whatever else is going on, you feel her presence. And then at the end of the session, she does this amazing you know, this is the eye gazing thing that I was talking about. She gets everybody to just sit and look at everybody else that's shared the experience with her. And there's so much stillness in the room at the end of this thing. I mean, it's beautiful to be part of, and it makes it feel like a real collective experience. And there's 100 people in that space, and it was all automated apart from the hour and a half that she's like jumping around, shaking and making us all laugh and cry. So it's totally, this was my sort of learning from the embodiment circles and a couple of things like that. It's entirely possible to do amazing, beautiful human connection through a screen, but you have to think about it differently.
It needs to be well thought out, and this is where I say, like, maybe a lot of I think a lot of people who are taking this seriously are going through their own professional development and inner work, because it's really tapping into what is authentically me and what can I bring to the session. And as you said, okay, automation, it's tempting, but if you don't have that, you haven't figured out who exactly you're serving, who you are, and what you bring to the table, what you bring to the session, that automation might detach you from your clients rather than bring you together. So this is a really important observation.
Yeah, I think so. Like, you know, edit the templates is what I would say. Like, go in there if it says thank you for your message, you know, is that what you would say? Like, think about what you would say as a human. How would you express yourself as a human? And just taking that time, you know, that time that you're not having to travel to the yoga studio and sweep the damn thing, and you know, or whatever the activities around you getting to the space that you used to work in, using that time to invest in other ways of creating a beautiful space to work in. Yeah,
definitely. That's amazing. Kat, thank you so much for this. Do you have anything to add? I think we've touched on a lot of so much value in this video.
Good. I'm very glad about that. Like, it's an evolving field, and I know that we will only get better at it, actually. And you know, the more people share and experiment and play with it, you know, not dangerously, not, you know, still within the bounds of sort of your sort of professionalism, but play with it a little bit. The people are a lot more forgiving at the moment if the camera falls on the floor, or they can't hear you for 10 minutes because you accidentally muted yourself. Or I was trying to screen share something yesterday. I was doing a pelvic floor and trauma sort of mini workshop to a group of students of Amino, which is an emotional release therapy that I do. And the screen sharing took me like 10 minutes to organize. I don't know what was going on. I could see what I was looking at. They could see. People are just a bit more forgiving at the moment, I think, of that stuff. We don't have to be sort of so slick. We can be incredibly sort of human about it. We'll continue to evolve is what I'm putting. We will, you know, I think we have sometimes as entrepreneurs, or this idea that we have to be perfect, you know, we have to be the yoga with Adrienne kind of, you know, well lit yoga studio. You don't. Like, people want you, they want your magic, and they want your, you know, your style of teaching and your authenticity and your wisdom and your sort of honesty. And you only really need a screen for that, like a screen and a microphone. You know, my sort of encouragement is, if people want to do it and aren't sure, just try. Do a practice one with 2 mates. Give 2 friends a free yoga class or a free personal training class. Because even if all the doors open tomorrow and we can all go back to normal, there is something, we're growing, like you say. First of all, we're all tuning into what it is we really want to bring to the table, but it's just another skill to be able to do what you do and adapt what you do through a screen.
And
it can be as powerful.
And there are actually people out there who want to continue. I mean, me for starters, I love the fact that if my class is at 6:45 a.m., I mean, I can be up at 6, right? If I had to go to the studio, then I need like way more time to do that. And it's just, I find it very convenient.
I'm getting to 3 yoga teachers that I would not normally get to practice with. Amazing.
Same here. yoga teachers
So
that I've never actually been to their class because it was always on the other side of town or a different country to begin with.
yes.
So this is really like, okay, finally I can go to their classes.
Right, and there's this sort of I don't want to call it globalization, but there's this actually, as we are finding our authenticity, or we're really being asked to plug into what is it, you know, what is it that I really want to bring, and what do I offer? And if I decide that some of that is onlineable, which I have decided, it's like, well, then there's another huge market opens up, because there's all these people on the end of a computer that I didn't have access, you know, that I didn't have something to offer to before.
Exactly.
So it's exciting to me. It's really exciting. And I understand, you know, it's like, no, the first embodiment circle I did, it was, you know, I had 4 pages of notes. The setup was crazy. I had like a phone with a timer on it and another phone over here on my notes. And I was, you know, I had somebody tech supporting me, which was great. And I had somebody else to do the meditation. And, you know, it was a lot more juggling. And within 8 weeks, I'm like, I can do the tech on my own, the meditation on my own, the delivery on my own. I've got 1 page of notes and a timer and a cup of tea going on. So it's like within 8 weeks, I became better at it. Not
Exactly.
best, but better. And there's this kind of, you know, as long as we're making forward progress, like really that's all we can do. As long as we're evolving internally and externally, you know, we're moving closer to the more authentic version of our service, or we're moving closer to a sort of, you know, technically better version of our service, or that's it, isn't it? That's all we can hope. We're not gonna, you know, be brilliant at everything from day one.
No, and that's it. I mean, with everything in life, I guess. So this is just another thing that we learn and introduce new habits and practice and progress. Basically.
Yeah.
Progress over perfection. I always say that.
Yeah. Yes, always. And sometimes progress is sitting there and going, I have no idea what I want to do, or even if I want to be online, and that's all right as well.
Okay, yeah.
You know,
exactly.
progress can be a change of diet, you know, trying something and deciding it's not for you, and that's totally, you know, amazing. If it becomes a piece of learning, then great.
Definitely. I really, really, really enjoyed this chat with you, Kat.
Me too.
I hope everyone who's watching did too. And maybe you want to close on the Stronger Together. Who is it for?
Yeah, so for 2 things, because I may if you it'd be useful for you to say a little bit about your world, because if I may share this in a few places where people know me but not you.
Yeah.
So the Stronger, but I'll talk about Stronger Together first. Stronger Together Bodyworkers Collective, working title, is the Facebook community that we have started. Originally we started for Malta-based practitioners, which is where I am in the world, but we're extending it now because it's become more than just sort of Malta COVID stuff. Is a Facebook group, and we'll include the link to that somewhere. So if you are interested in being supported by a kind of community of like-minded solopreneurs in the bodywork world, so that's yoga teachers, fitness professionals, massage therapists, the whole shebang, then come along. We're a small but loving community, and we're hoping to grow, and we're sharing things on that, like self-care practices, business practices, sort of, you know, financial advice, marketing practices. You've shared quite a few things, I know, upskilling, you know, useful YouTube links where we can learn a little bit more about the world of bodies, and then practical stuff like how to use Zoom, and, you know, so there's quite a broad range of stuff on there, and it's all, you know, free and accessible. You and I drop things in there quite frequently, so yeah, come along and ask to join that, and we just need to know a little bit about where you're at as a practitioner, but you're welcome. You are very welcome to join that community.
It's a really beautiful space, and a lot of interaction, a lot of support, and as we mentioned at the beginning of this talk, a very collaborative approach, very supportive of one another. And I think community is king, and you do not need to figure it out alone. That is definitely, like, I learned that the hard way. And
you can, but it's exhausting, right? And we want to save our energy for the work, so
it's exhausting. And why try and reinvent the wheel when other people are doing it already and they're doing it effectively? Just learn from others around you. It's totally okay, and just adapt it to your own self. For those who don't know me, my name's Hannah. I'm a business coach. I work with solo entrepreneurs, particularly in the wellness and well-being space. At the moment, I'm running a 10-day intensive program for yoga teachers, which is coming to its end, and I hope to bring this to more people in the future. Also a community member of Stronger Together, where I'm actually learning quite a lot and doing my own inner work, which is great. So yeah, if you would like to connect, we'll drop some links to our groups below, and feel free to ask us any questions about everything we've been talking about. I know there's a lot of value, a lot of tips that Kat has been dropping in. I hope they're useful to you and your practice.
Thank you.
Alrighty then.